Hi, I'm John F. Allen.
And I'm RJ Sullivan.
And we're the Two Towers.
Greetings and welcome to the Two Towers Talk Show. I'm your host, John F. Allen, Tower 1.
I'm Tower 2, RJ Sullivan.
Today we are going to be reviewing and recapping the Orville seasons 1 and 2. So for all of you viewers out there who don't know what the Orville is about, let me run down what this show is about. The Orville is a comedic homage to Star Trek, specifically The Next Generation, which originally aired on Fox. The show is set 400 years in the future and follows the adventures of the Orville, a not-so-top-of-the-line exploratory ship in Earth's interstellar fleet. Facing cosmic challenges from without and within, the motley crew of this ship of space explorers will boldly go where no comedic drama has ever gone before. So just in what the show is about, let's talk about who created the show. And it is none other than Seth MacFarlane, who is known for The Family Guy, which is another product from Fox. And Seth MacFarlane not only is the writer and director and creator for this show, he is also its star. And he plays Captain Ed Mercer, who is the captain of the Orville. Adrienne Palacki plays Commander Kelly Grayson. You may know her from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and other geeky comic book portrayals. Scott Grimes plays Lieutenant Gordon Malloy. He is Ed's best friend. And Jay Lee plays Lieutenant Commander John Lamar. We also have Penny Johnson-Gerald, who plays Dr. Claire Finn. And what's amazing about her as an actress is that she starred as Sherry Palmer in 24, the television series, also a Fox series, and Cassie Sisko, who was the wife of Captain Benjamin Sisko on Star Trek Deep Space Nine. So they actually snagged a Star Trek actress for this role. I thought that was interesting. We also have Kai Winner as Ty Finn, one of Claire Finn's two sons, and B.J. Tanner as Marcus Finn, the other son. And we also have a Peter Mackin. He plays Lieutenant Commander Bortus, who is an alien from an alien race called the Macklins. And we have Chad L. Coleman, who is Clyden. And we have Mark Jackson, who is Isaac, who is a sentient cybernetic robotic being. And we have Halston Sage as Lieutenant Alara Katan. She is a Zalayan, which is another alien species. What's known about these species is that they are extremely strong with comparison to humans because they live in an atmosphere that allows for them to have stronger musculature. And that's an amazing little side note on there. We also have Jessica Salazar as Talia Kelali, and Norm MacDonald as another comedic actor who's well known, who plays Yaphet, who is like a gelatinous alien. A lot of comic relief there. We'll get into that. And Mike Henry as Dan. So just so you are up and aware about what's going on with the Orville, that is the cast and crew, and that's what the Orville is about. And we're going to be going through these episodes of season 1 and 2. So, RJ, got anything to say before we dive in?
Yeah, I am an unlikely fan, as John remembers. I've gone through not being overly fond of Seth MacFarlane. He's mostly stayed off of my radar. I'd seen a few Family Guys and wasn't terribly impressed. And really didn't give him a whole lot of thought. He was a humor of a specific type, and it didn't really work with me a whole lot. So I came into the Orville with a bit of a chip on my shoulder and very skeptical as to how this was going to work. Being a huge Star Trek fan, that was another concern. I've seen Star Trek beat down quite a bit by a number of people, and I didn't want to see that trend continue. And let's just say over time, as we go through these episodes, I'll specifically call out my thoughts as we go through these. But, I came around to the vision of the series. I came around to Seth MacFarlane's genuine fondness for Star Trek, and that this was actually a love letter to Star Trek, and that, whatever faults I may find in the show, and I do have a few, it is genuine, and it is coming from a good place. And so I eventually came on board over time, and I've come to really champion the show and greatly appreciate it. So John, I think it's fair to say, was more optimistic going in, and has remained optimistic about it. Just a couple side notes that I think are worth mentioning. All the episodes are on Hulu. They've remained on Hulu, so you can go check it out at any time if you have a Hulu subscription. And then we'll get into the future of the show at its proper time.
All right.
We discuss that.
All right. And just to chime in, yes, I'm a fan of Seth MacFarlane. I actually really liked Family Guy. I think that there's some controversy with the humor because he hits social justice topics over the head. And I think a lot of people are disgruntled by that or shocked by that. I don't know the man personally, and I can't speak to who he is as a person, but I think that a lot of it is tongue-in-cheek to bring awareness to the ridiculousness of how people act when they are acting in a way that is not kind and that is not accepting of other people. And I think that sometimes it can rub even the people who are intended to uplift in a way that makes them disgruntled. And that's how I see it. Now, that's just my personal opinion on it. Some of the Family Guy episodes deal with some subject matters that's really, really cuts very close when it comes to religion and sexual orientation and other things like that. I think, and at least I want to hope, that Seth MacFarlane was going in a different direction than a lot of the ways in which it was taken. But all I can say about that is that as a fan of his talent as not only a writer, a creator, an illustrator, and a cartoonist, as well as an actor, voice actor, and motion picture actor, he is extremely talented. So if even people who don't like him per se cannot deny that he is a multi-talented person who really took things by storm from the entertainment industry. And I have to give him kudos for that. Even if other people may not like him per se or his brand of humor, there's no denying that he's an extremely dynamic and talented person. And so that being said, when this show was announced, and I saw the previews, I was immediately intrigued. And I have been a fan from the very first episode. Now, like RJ, I have quibbles, and there's some things that went on, specifically more so in the first season than the second season, that I had some issues with. And I think it's worth mentioning that even Seth MacFarlane himself had issues with, because of the studio and what they were expecting didn't quite jibe with what he wanted to do. We'll get into that a little bit later, but I just wanted to piggyback on what RJ said. So let's begin with season 1, and that's Old Wounds. And basically this show introduces the crew of the Orville this particular episode. And it's interesting in that it's a love story, and it's also a redemption arc, and there's a lot of drama in here that, to be honest, I wasn't expecting from Seth MacFarlane. I was expecting this to not have any drama at all. I mean, I was almost expecting there to be a live audience or a laugh track in this thing when I first watched it, but it is very much a drama. And what are your thoughts, RJ?
Well, coming into it years ago, I remember with the chip on my shoulder and not expecting to like it. It seemed like my fears were validated because it leads with the domestic infidelity between Ed and Kelly. I mean, that is literally the first scene we get, and I was like, oh, okay, this isn't going to be a science fiction show. This is going to be a domestic drama, which really I was not ready for that, and I have to say, kind of set me up for not really liking the show very much. Now, I appreciated once the hour got going that they kind of established that. I guess, if you've not seen this, we're just going to get right into spoilers because we're doing an overview of the 2 seasons. So we're going to kind of touch on key points that we feel worth commenting on, whether they're spoilers or not. But we come to find out that Ed really didn't qualify to earn the Orville on his own, but they pulling the strings with administration, and that even though they were divorced and it was a bitter and angry divorce, that she's still kind of looking out for him and loves him, and at this point he doesn't know that. So I did find that a little bit interesting. I've never really watched the idea of all these different Star Trek permutations and having a divorced couple. I was like, okay, this could be interesting, but I really wasn't ready for it to go there and to jump and to kind of lead with that. Watching it a second time, of course, I had a better idea of where it was going, but I still think that was an unusual choice, and I'm still not sure it was maybe the best way to the situation. But it did kind of put my own shields up, I guess you could say, and I think that it took me a little bit longer to warm up to it because that is how we started.
Yeah, and let me also say that when it comes to that particular dynamic of the show, I thought it was actually interesting. I thought that it humanized the characters and made them a lot more relatable. I'm the type of person who I grew up loving Star Trek, from watching the reruns of the original series and the movies to The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, so forth and so on. That being said, I like that this show tackled something that we didn't see in Star Trek, because it made it its own thing, and it also made it more relatable to me. Having been someone who has been through a divorce and whatnot, it kind of humanized the characters in a way. I didn't want them to be larger than life in this show, and I didn't want them to be iconic like Shatner's Kirk and Picard's and Patrick Stewart's Picard. I wanted them to be flawed in a way that the average person could see themselves in that situation, but also be in command of a starship. And I think that it delivered it for me, and I didn't have any qualms about it at all, really. I thought it was really something that was really a good move, in my opinion.
Well, I think there was a concern that aspect of it could take over the show. I mean, they led with it, and I was like, I hope we're not going to watch just two people bickering every episode. And the second episode kind of didn't do anything to alleviate my fears. Let's get into that one where Ed and Kelly end up trapped in a zoo where they're in their old apartment and they end up kind of bickering the whole episode. So it wasn't going well for me, in the first couple, because it seemed like my concerns were going to be validated that this is all the show was going to be about. Now, there were some other things going on at the same time to where I was like, okay, I'll keep giving it a chance, but the first couple, we really weren't off to a really good start for me. I also need to back up, and I rewatched the entire 2 years over the last couple weeks, and when you know that the show is pretty decent and it has a solid foundation and that we're going good places and that chip is no longer there, these episodes go down a little bit better. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of having two conversations about the first time I watched it and then the second time going back through it. I could appreciate what it was trying to do when I rewatched it. The first time, the first two didn't impress me that much because I still wasn't sure what the show was doing and I wasn't sure that I liked it.
And that's understandable. I will definitely say that the first two episodes, while they intrigued me enough to continue, they weren't the best episodes of this series or of this season, in my opinion. But I get where you're coming from. And yeah, I did not want War of the Roses in space.
Exactly.
That was not what I was wanting. And I was hoping, like you, but I was a little bit more optimistic that it would happen based upon what I had read, that wasn't going to be the case. And it wasn't. It eventually, they turned this around. The show in and of itself, let me say that this is where what the producers and the studio wanted differed from actual vision that Seth MacFarlane himself had. Seth MacFarlane wanted this to be a more serious drama with comedic elements, but the studio was banking on people wanting this to be more comedic, like the Family Guy, because that's what MacFarlane's other works had displayed. And they didn't anticipate on MacFarlane's range as an actor outside of the comedic. And the tone of the show was very over the top this first season. There were a lot of dick jokes. Let's just put that out there. Let's get the elephant
which
in
I
the
commented on at the time. I was
Right.
like, here we go. It's going to be Star Trek with dick jokes. And I'm not interested in that.
And that turned me off. And I'm someone who really liked this show from the very beginning, but that was turning me off.
Yeah.
And with that being said, it was like, okay, I like this show. They just need to tone down that. And they needed to put just a little bit more drama, tighten up the writing. And I think, in my mind, I was thinking this could really be a good show.
Yeah.
I think that they listened. Someone told them, and they decided, okay, Seth, we're going to let you go into this next season, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But they righted the ship, but they even started doing it within this season, and that leads to the third episode, which is titled "About a Girl." Now, this has Lieutenant Bortus, who I explained was an alien, and his mate Clyden. Now, to give you an overview of the alien species, they are the Macklins, and basically the Macklins, they're a species that is only male, and they reproduce male to male. And now that's not to say that there aren't natural born females. Sometimes there are, but they are a mutation and in their species, how they look at it. And so if a child is born female, then that child has a corrective surgery, much like a circumcision at birth to, correct it. I know a circumcision is different, but it's just like they do it as when they're babies so that they don't even know anything about it.
Yeah.
And there's a controversy between the parents, Bortus and Clyden, as to whether or not they want their child to be raised as a female as the child was born, or to conform to the societal decree of the Moclan race and have the surgery to switch the gender. And what intrigued me about this particular episode is that it really dealt with some of the stigmas of what goes on today with the identity of people as it relates to gender, and it relates to sexuality and other things. And this is where I think McFarlane really wants to make a statement about this in a positive way, although sometimes the jokes are over the top. In the past, this particular episode, though, I don't think that I didn't feel that the jokes were over the top. I felt like that they were actually genuine. What were your thoughts?
Wow, this was the first. Okay, I don't know about your Facebook page, but mine lit up when this thing aired. This is the first episode where I was like, okay, excuse me, sorry, I'm having let me just take a quick drink here. Hold on. This was the first time where I was like, okay, we're gonna really tackle the hot button topics, the things of the day, which is what Star Trek was always known for doing. I also found it interesting that he was writing the line between how the crew members personally felt about it and what a quote federation or a union, I believe they call themselves.
Mm-hmm.
How do you approach this as the idea of this is their society and we kind of have to be hands off, but we personally find this objectionable. And they didn't play it entirely for laughs. I don't believe that they played it for laughs at all, really. They really dug in, looked at all sides, and went with an answer which I know upset a lot of viewers and stood by that. And I was like, okay, all right, well, if you're gonna have the balls to go there, at least you stood by your decision. And I felt the way the episode actually played out, I think that that's what if we look at what a Federation would do, a Federation starship, and they were confronted with such a thing, I felt much the way that where the show seemed to come down on. I'm not happy about it. I think it's the wrong choice, but this is it. Our hands are tied, and this is what we have to do. And I give Seth MacFarlane early credit. This was the first time I was like, well, you took on something, and I admired that. This was the first one I kind of admired. I can't say I 100% liked it. I still wasn't on board, but I went, well, this could be interesting if this is the sort of thing we're doing.
Well, from a storytelling perspective, I think, and we're going, and just to let our viewers know, RJ and I have been friends for years, so we're going to have differing opinions on stuff. So it's just part of who we are, and but from a storytelling perspective, I think that they did everything right here, even including the fact that they ended up going with having the sex or the gender change operation. And the reason why that I think was the right choice is because it's going to be brought up later on, and it involves a story arc that needed to be told. And I think that the writing for that, and the decision with this in this episode being made set the tone for the other episodes, and it set the tone for the series in a lot of ways, going especially as we enter into season 2, that had they not made that particular decision in this episode, it wouldn't have rung as true for me as a viewer. And I think that even though from a personal perspective in the real world that, I would have preferred there have been a different outcome. I think from a storytelling perspective and from the idea of respecting other people and their belief system and their own laws when you're dealing with alien cultures, you have to unfortunately accept the good and the bad, and it may be a bitter pill to swallow. While you can still voice your objections to it, you have to give way to the authority of other cultures, even though those cultures may have things going on that are barbaric. Now, you can offer shelter within your own community if that's what you so choose. But when it comes to a situation like this show where you're dealing with a union of planets, then it becomes a lot more tricky because they haven't sought asylum, and so that becomes a whole different thing. I think that this, like you, RJ, this particular episode was like, now they're really dealing with some hot button, serious issues, and it was interesting to see how they played that out. And I thought that this was like the episode in this season that made me think, I'm doubling down on my position with this show, and I'm committed to seeing it through and moving forward with it.
Yeah, no, I actually don't disagree with anything you said. I still wasn't 100% on board because I wasn't sure what the norm was going to be, but I was like, okay, more of this and less of some of the other things, and I could be on board, and we're going to get there. So I don't have much to say about episode 4. That's the one with the bioship, Kelly being captured, and the dictator zealots is the notes I have about it. I thought it was a lot of well-worn cliches, and I don't remember being terribly impressed with it. And rewatching it, it still was just okay for me. So I don't have much to say about that episode.
That would be
If the Stars
should appear. Yeah. That's pretty much it. Although I will say this as a little trivia side note, the voice for the computer on that particular episode, and I think subsequent episodes, is provided by Seth MacFarlane's real life sister.
Mm-hmm.
And her name is Rachel MacFarlane. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
A little tidbit of information there. So he was able to get his sister involved, who has been a voice actress for other Seth MacFarlane projects, just FYI. It's interesting in that it mirrors Star Trek when you had Majel Barrett being the voice for the computer and being playing Nurse Chapel, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that's correct.
The original series, and she was married to creator. So you've got Gene Roddenberry, who there's an element of closeness when it comes to certain things within the show, and I thought that was interesting, the little dynamic that played in this show like it did with Star Trek, the original series. So we'll go to episode 5, which is Priya. And so with episode 5, you've got Ed, the captain, who becomes smitten with a captain of a stranded ship. And his ex-wife and first officer, Kelly Grayson, she's thinking that there's more to this person than meets the eye. And let me just say that one of my favorite female action actresses appeared, and that's something that I will as Priya, the character of Priya, and that's Charlize Theron. And let me just say that this show does not disappoint with its cameos and with its guest stars. It basically, they grab a lot of well-known talent for this show, and that in and of itself is another layer of why I enjoy this show as much as I do. So with that being said, this particular episode, this is the first woman that Ed has gotten romantically involved with or has had any type of significant attraction to since his divorce from Kelly. And he immediately sees Kelly's objections to this woman as just blind jealousy. And
Sure.
that, becomes an issue. It also helps Priya in her, behind the scenes or underhand machinations as she's plotting to do what she wants to do. It kind of helps to fuel the chasm between Ed and Kelly, which is an interesting dynamic on a show like this. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it was a solid episode. It wasn't a favorite, but it kept me watching, waiting to see where we were going with it. But Charlize Theron is, this is a different level. This is a different caliber of actress. I did not expect to see someone of her pedigree showing up on the Orville. I know that she has a geek side to her. I know she's done some robot chicken voices on occasion, but to be a guest star on television when she is essentially a movie actress was very surprising. Someone of that caliber to show up on a program like the Orville and play the part pretty straight and play it well, in a story that was, pretty solid. It didn't blow my mind, but I was like, okay, well, that's some solid science fiction. This all kind of, this is where I was really starting to appreciate that he's trying, although I didn't think it was all that successful up to episode 5, but he's trying to do some good science fiction here, and he's trying to do something that Star Trek fans will appreciate and enjoy. And I haven't talked about the visual effects up till now, but the visual effects are stunning. The actors down the line are very enjoyable, and the music is incredible as well. So I mean, I right off the bat, I was enjoying the production value. But we've had all kinds of Star Trek guest stars up till now. We've had, some of your expected comical actors making appearances up till now, but that one made me pause because now we're getting some pretty high caliber talent to come onto the program. So I think for that, it's worth noting.
Right. And just as a little bit of tidbit of trivia as we go through these episodes, last episode that we spoke of, the If the Stars Should Appear, there was a cameo by Liam Neeson at the end of that episode. And
right, that's true too.
That was something that I thought was interesting, that they got high caliber actors who, as RJ had stated, are normally big screen actors. And now,
and I want to make a distinction between that, because that was essentially a cameo, and Charlize Theron is in most of this episode. I mean, she had to show up probably for all the filming days, whether that be a week or 6 days or whatever. I mean, that was a commitment from an actress who, one would think in theory has better things to do. So clearly this was something she wanted to do and went out of her way to do. So, kudos to her.
Right. And this isn't Charlize Theron's first go with, or last go with science fiction, as she's appeared in Prometheus, which is like a prequel
Sure.
to the Alien movies, and also to the Mad Max Thunder Road, I think it is.
Sure, yeah. Mhm.
So she has some cred where science fiction is concerned. And
Little geek blood in her, one suspects.
yes, absolutely. And also another little tidbit before we move on to the next episode. This is another tidbit of trivia. Jonathan Frakes, aka Commander, wow, his name escapes me. Riker, yes, from The Next Generation, directed this particular episode.
That's right. I remember that now.
Yeah. So not only is this show pulling actors from, the big screen and from Star Trek in and of itself, but also having them to guest direct episodes. I think that basically
let me cut in here real quick, John. Brandon Braga from the Next Generation production staff, I believe his name shows up pretty regularly on those credits as one of the exec producers, and I think a consultant in season 2, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, and that's definitely worth noting. And I would like to also say that all of that being taken into consideration makes one wonder, and it definitely made me wonder that, these creators, these performers, they saw something of value in this show, and that helped to reinforce my own feelings about this. If they saw the value, and I was seeing the value, but there were issues like we will get to that I had with the show. It just made me feel like that this was something that was going to develop into something a lot bigger and a lot better down the line. So just want to say that. The next episode is Krill. Now that's episode 6, and that basically introduces a new species to the show, new to us, not new to the Union, or any of the characters. And this species reminded me from Star Trek, because a lot of this stuff is going to be based of, it's like it's a homage to Star Trek, and it reminded me of the Cardassians from Deep Space Nine. If you mix them a little bit with the not the Vulcans, but the Romulans, and you kind of merge them together.
You're right.
And put that species. They were very warlike, very aggressive, but they were very calculating too. And so, that all being said, we have Ed and Gordon are sent on an undercover mission to infiltrate a Krill ship, obtain a copy of their Bible so that they could use this as a weapon against them should there be a war or anything like that, and they would be able to have some type of upper hand. And it's interesting that when they go undercover, Ed grows close to someone there,
yes.
one of the members of the Krill race, a female, and there's some genuine respect there, but there's also the inevitable betrayal when it is learned by this female Krill that Ed is actually human working with the Union and looking to obtain something that obviously they don't want them to have. And it's interesting that it's almost like a Cold War situation between the Union and the Krill race, that they haven't really had an all-out assault on one another, but both parties have their fingers on the button. And I think that has a lot of historical value in how they set this up. I can't say that this is my favorite episode, but after the past episode, this is another episode that's like, okay, they're getting better. They're upping their game. They're moving into interesting territory, and they're keeping me invested. What about you?
Well, any show is as good as its villains, and the Krill. This was the first time we spent any time with them. There's much made of their religious fanaticism, and that seems to be a focal point. I don't know if that's Seth MacFarlane personally. I know that he has atheistic tendencies, but he tends to straw man some of this a little bit, and he does in other episodes as well. And that didn't really bother me. What I did like about it was the fact that at the end of the episode, they have to make a decision about basically killing most of the people on the ship or letting them attack a colony. And although they make the correct choice to stop the Krill ship and well, basically because they're allergic to ultraviolet light, they just crank the lights up. But then he has the one person he's grown close to, who is a teacher, and their students. They make sure that the light does not come on in that one room. So he went out of his way to protect certain people, and also tried to make it right, tried to explain, hey, this is what we had to do because the consequences would have been far greater. And of course, it doesn't do him any good. But I like seeing Ed's humanity trying to wrestle with a no-win situation. And, he really wasn't able to come up with a successful solution for everybody, but now he has something he kind of has to live with this episode. So I appreciated some of the nuances in this episode. I thought there was some neat stuff going on. Obviously, we're 6 episodes in, and I was still watching, and I was starting to come around, but I hadn't quite been swayed yet the first time around.
Gotcha. And like I say, we come at this from different perspectives, and which is fine. And I think that adds to our show, and it adds to our viewers being able to see 2 different sides of things. Sometimes at this point, I was fully vested. I was ready for more. I still had my issues, but it seemed as though this was the start of a turn for me. And I was feeling something in the air with this show at this point that made me think, okay, someone somewhere has said something to somebody, and they're starting to reach into their potential here. And this is really going to be one of my favorite shows. Now, let me also say that of the Star Trek shows that have aired, I wasn't really that big a fan of the Enterprise. I liked it enough to where I read it. I mean, I watched it, but I wasn't, it wasn't The Next Generation or Deep Space Nine by any stretch of the imagination. It was something that was there to watch, and I enjoyed it enough for what it was.
That's kind of what Star Trek was by that time.
Right.
There's something there to watch. Its glory days were long behind them by the time we got to Enterprise.
Right.
So yeah, go on. I definitely agree with you on that.
But then you had Star Trek Discovery, which came out, and Star Trek Discovery came out around the same time as the Orville.
Yeah.
And I felt myself enjoying the Orville more than I did Discovery, which I thought was very strange.
I have strong thoughts on that.
And I was like, there's something wrong. There's a disturbance in the universe here. I want to table that discussion until we've gone through the episodes, because I have strong thoughts on why that is. Okay. Yeah, but it's definitely something worth mentioning.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Two Towers Talk Show is a network partner and partially sponsored by Nerddom United,
a company whose goal is to create and provide materials for nerds around the world. They support all things nerdy, from anime, comics, gaming, manga, movies, TV, and more. Nerddom United's goal is to provide a platform for nerds to be involved with what they love and to create a safe space for nerds to passionately pursue and grow their creative endeavors. Be sure to check them out on Facebook and YouTube. Thanks.
The Two Towers Talk Show is sponsored in part by Showtime Cinema in Mooresville, Indiana. Their friendly staff is always willing to go the extra mile to make your movie-going experience an enjoyable and memorable one. Enjoy the comfort of their new cushioned seating in their spacious auditoriums, and while you're there, be sure to stop by the concession stand and purchase some popcorn where real butter topping is an option. They're located at 300 South Bridge Street in Mooresville, Indiana. We hope to see you at the movies.